This guy was a walking controversy. Broke Bruno Sammartino's neck, stole a championship belt, and practically started a war with his brutal style. Get ready for the insane story of Stan Hansen. Born in Texas, Hansen brought classic toughness from his rodeo background. He wasn't just playing a character, he was a force of nature. With his signature cowboy hat, leather vest, and tobacco chew, he looked like he walked straight out of a Western, and he fought like it too. The best part is that Hansen's career spanned decades and continents. He conquered territories across America, becoming a mainstay in the AWA and even challenging for the WWF Championship. But it was in Japan where he truly made his legacy. Hansen was a larger-than-life figure for sure. But with that raw power came a career filled with drama, debates, and a lot of what-ifs. Let's talk about what's probably the most infamous moment in Hansen's career: the time he broke Bruno Sammartino's neck. This happened back in 1976 during a WWF title match at Madison Square Garden. Hansen was still pretty new to the big stage at the time, but he was already making waves for his rough, no-nonsense style. In this match, though, things took a scary turn. Bruno ended up with a broken neck, and the wrestling world couldn't stop talking about it. Now here's where the story gets a little murky. Hansen and some promoters claim that his signature move, the lariat, caused the injury. But most accounts, including Sammartino's own, point to a botched power slam as the real culprit. Regardless of what actually happened, this was a career-defining moment for both men. Bruno was sidelined for months, and while he eventually came back, some believe this injury shortened his legendary career. For Hansen, it cemented his reputation as someone who wasn't afraid to push the limits, whether intentionally or not. Then there's the time Hansen had a match with Vader in Japan in 1990. If you've ever heard the phrase, "wrestling isn't fake, it's choreographed," this match is Exhibit A for how real things can get. During the match, Hansen accidentally poked Vader in the eye. No big deal, right? Well, it was a huge deal because the poke was so hard that Vader's eyeball actually popped out of its socket. Yes, you heard that correctly. His eyeball came out. And because Vader was as tough as they come, he just popped it back in and finished the match. This match became legendary, not just for the sheer toughness on display, but also because it brought attention to Japan's strong style of wrestling. Strong style is all about making everything look, and sometimes feel, real, with hard hits and intense action. Fans loved it, but incidents like this made people question whether it was worth the risk. Was the pursuit of realism pushing wrestlers too far? And where do you draw the line between entertaining the crowd and protecting the wrestlers? Another big controversy in Hansen's career wasn't about a match or an injury, it was about a championship belt. In 1985, Hansen won the AWA World Heavyweight Championship by defeating Nick Bockwinkel. That sounds great, right? But here's where things get messy. Instead of sticking around the US to defend the title, Hansen prioritized his wrestling commitments in Japan. The AWA wasn't happy about this and decided to strip him of the championship. Now, most wrestlers in that situation would probably hand the belt back, but Hansen wasn't most wrestlers. He kept the physical championship belt and continued to defend it in Japan, claiming he was still the rightful champion. This created a ton of confusion for fans. Who was the real champion? It was a mess, and the AWA took a hit to its credibility. Some people even argue that this whole situation played a part in the eventual decline of the promotion. From Hansen's perspective, he was probably just doing what was best for his career. But to the AWA and its fans, it looked like he was disrespecting the company and the traditions of the championship. It's another example of how Hansen's career was always walking that fine line between being a rebel and being a professional. Of course, we can't talk about Stan Hansen without mentioning his wrestling style. If there's one thing Hansen was known for, it was his stiffness. In wrestling terms, being stiff means you hit harder than most. And Hansen hit hard. His lariats, punches, and kicks didn't just look devastating, they often were devastating. This added to his reputation as one of the toughest guys in the business, but it also came with its share of problems. Some wrestlers respected his intensity and were willing to take the punishment because it made the matches feel more real. But others weren't so thrilled. There were plenty of stories about wrestlers who felt Hansen went too far, and even a few backstage confrontations over his stiff style. Injuries happened, and not everyone thought it was worth it. This debate, working stiff versus working safe, has been around for as long as wrestling itself. Hansen's career is a perfect example of why it's such a hot topic. On one hand, his style helped make him a legend. Fans loved the realism, and his matches were unforgettable because they felt like actual fights. On the other hand, there's a fine line between making things look real and putting people in danger, and Hansen crossed that line more than once. Despite all the controversies, though, there's no denying Stan Hansen's impact on wrestling. He was a trailblazer, especially in Japan, where he became a huge star. His charisma, intensity, and larger-than-life personality made him unforgettable. And while his career was filled with moments that sparked debates and raised eyebrows, those same moments are why we're still talking about him today. So, what's the legacy of Stan Hansen? He's a reminder of how wrestling isn't just black and white. It's a world where performance and reality blur together, sometimes in ways that are thrilling, and other times in ways that are dangerous. Hansen lived in that gray area, and whether you see him as a hero, a villain, or something in between, you can't deny the mark he left on the sport. Now let us take a moment to appreciate his dynamic career. With that being said, here's a quick rundown of his epic career. Stan Hansen was born on August 29, 1949, and grew up in Texas. You can probably guess how he got that cowboy image, right? Before wrestling, though, Stan was a football player. He played for the West Texas State Buffaloes, a college football team famous for producing other wrestling stars like Bruiser Brody, Dusty Rhodes, and Terry Funk. But Hansen's dreams of a football career didn't pan out. He tried out for the Detroit Wheels, a team in the short-lived World Football League, but didn't make the cut. Lucky for us, this setback pushed him toward wrestling, where he started his career in 1973. At first, he wrestled part-time while still pursuing football, but by 1974, wrestling became his main focus. Early on, he teamed up with a wrestler named Frank Goodish, who later became known as Bruiser Brody. These two were a force to be reckoned with, and their paths would cross again and again throughout their careers. Stan Hansen's big break came in 1976 when he joined the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, or WWF, which we now know as WWE. Just 2 months into his time there, he started a feud with one of the biggest stars in wrestling history, Bruno Sammartino. Now here's where things get wild. During a match with Bruno, Hansen accidentally broke his neck. Wrestling promoters, being the storytellers they are, turned this real-life accident into part of Hansen's character. They claim that Bruno's injury was caused by Stan's lariat, a clothesline move so powerful it could take anyone down. In reality, it was a botched power slam that caused the injury, but the myth of Hansen's devastating lariat was born. The incident made Hansen a feared name in wrestling, and he continued to face big names like Pedro Morales, Andre the Giant, and Bob Backlund during his time with the WWF. But while Hansen had success in the US, it was in Japan where he truly became a legend. Hansen first wrestled in Japan in 1977 for New Japan Pro Wrestling. He had already built a reputation as the guy who broke Bruno Sammartino's neck, which made him an instant villain. Japanese fans loved to hate him, and he leaned into that role, facing off against top stars like Antonio Inoki and Tatsumi Fujinami. One of his biggest moments came in 1980 when he defeated Inoki for the NWF World title. At the time, Inoki was practically unbeatable, so this victory made Hansen a massive star in Japan. In 1981, Hansen made a shocking move. He left New Japan Pro Wrestling and joined their rival promotion, All Japan Pro Wrestling. This was a big deal. Wrestling promotions in Japan were fiercely competitive, and Hansen jumping ship was like adding fuel to the fire. In All Japan, Hansen's career reached new heights. He became the only wrestler to pin both Antonio Inoki and Giant Baba, two of the biggest names in Japanese wrestling. During championship matches, he won title after title, including the prestigious Triple Crown Heavyweight Championship multiple times. Over the years, Hansen built a reputation as one of the most dominant foreign wrestlers in Japan, earning respect from fans and peers alike. Back in the United States, Hansen had some wild moments too. In 1985, he joined the American Wrestling Association, AWA, and won their World Heavyweight Championship. But here's where things got messy. When Hansen was supposed to lose the title to another wrestler, Nick Bockwinkel, he refused. Instead, he took the championship belt with him to Japan and kept defending it there. The AWA was furious and threatened legal action, but Hansen didn't back down. In a final act of defiance, he ran over the championship belt with his truck and mailed it back to the AWA with tire tracks on it. Yep, that really happened. Hansen also had a brief run in World Championship Wrestling, WCW, in the early 1990s. He feuded with Lex Luger and even won the United States Heavyweight Championship from him. But his time in WCW ended after a disagreement over a storyline. The promotion wanted Hansen to be part of a comedic group called the Desperados, a trio of bumbling cowboys looking for Hansen. Hansen wasn't a fan of the idea, so he left WCW and went back to Japan, where he felt more at home. Of course, we can't talk about Stan Hansen without mentioning one of the most infamous moments of his career, his match against Big Van Vader in 1990. This match is the stuff of wrestling legend. During the entrances, Hansen accidentally hit Vader in the face with his bull rope, breaking Vader's nose. Things only got crazier from there. During the match, Hansen accidentally poked Vader in the eye so hard that Vader's eye popped out of its socket. And what did Vader do? He pushed his eye back in and kept wrestling. The match ended in a brutal draw, but it's still remembered as one of the wildest bouts in wrestling history. Outside of wrestling, Hansen had a few interesting ventures. He appeared in the 1989 movie No Holds Barred and later released an autobiography called The Last Outlaw in 2011. The book is full of stories from his wrestling career and gives fans a deeper look into his life, both inside and outside the ring. Stan Hansen retired in 2001, leaving behind a legacy that few wrestlers could match. Over his career, he won 10 world championships and became a true icon, especially in Japan, where fans still hold him in high regard. His hard-hitting, no-nonsense style paved the way for wrestlers who wanted to bring more realism to their matches. And let's not forget that cowboy image, the hat, the vest, the bull rope. It's hard to think of Hansen without picturing him stomping to the ring, ready to fight anyone who crossed his path. Stan Hansen's legacy in professional wrestling is undeniable. He wasn't just another tough guy in the ring. He was a pioneer of a unique, hard-hitting style that inspired countless wrestlers after him. His lariat, which became one of the most feared moves in wrestling, is still used by many wrestlers today as a tribute to his impact. Hansen's intense style and larger-than-life personality set him apart from everyone else in his era, and fans loved him for it. In Japan, Hansen is remembered as one of the greatest gaijin wrestlers of all time. He broke down barriers for foreign wrestlers, showing that you didn't have to be from Japan to win over the fans there. The respect he earned in Japan wasn't just about the titles he won, but how he carried himself in the ring. He was tough, he was honest, and he always gave it his all, no matter who he was facing. That's why he's still revered there even decades after his retirement. Even outside the ring, Hansen's influence remains. Younger wrestlers often cite him as an inspiration, not just for his wrestling style, but for his work ethic and dedication to his craft. He showed that you didn't need fancy moves or flashy gimmicks to be great. All you needed was heart, intensity, and a strong connection with the audience. For fans, Stan Hansen will always be remembered as the cowboy who did things his way. Whether it was clobbering opponents with his bull rope, standing toe-to-toe with legends like Antonio Inoki and Big Van Vader, or breaking necks, literally and figuratively, Hansen left a mark on wrestling that will never fade. So that's the incredible story of Stan, the Lariat, Hansen. From a Texas football player to one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, Hansen's journey is the definition of legendary. If you enjoyed learning about his career, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more stories about wrestling's biggest stars. Let us know in the comments who you'd like us to cover next. We love hearing from you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.